I know how to read a room, and I know when the ground beneath you is about to crack wide open. When I walked into that lawyer's office 3 days after Margaret's funeral and saw who was sitting across from her desk, everything inside me went cold. My wife had been gone for 72 hours. 72 hours since I'd watched them lower her into the frozen February ground outside Oakville. 72 hours since I'd stood there in the snow. Our daughter Claire holding my left arm. Our son-in-law Derek holding my right. While the minister said words I couldn't hear over the roaring in my ears. Margaret, my Margaret, 58 years old. A heart attack, they said. Sudden. Massive. She'd been at her desk at the medical clinic where she worked as a billing coordinator. Just slumped forward onto her keyboard. Gone before the paramedics even arrived. We'd been married 34 years. 34 years of Saturday morning pancakes and arguments about the thermostat and her stealing the blankets every single night. 34 years of building a life in our modest bungalow in Mississauga. The one we'd bought when Claire was just a baby. The shame burned in my chest hotter than the grief, because I hadn't seen it. Hadn't seen that my wife was drowning. Hadn't noticed the stress lines deepening around her eyes or the way she'd started taking her laptop into the bedroom at night, clicking away at something while I watched hockey. I'd thought she was just busy at work, maybe planning some surprise for our anniversary in April. I'd been a high school math teacher for 37 years. I was good at solving problems, at breaking down complex equations into simple steps. But I'd missed the most important calculation of my life. My wife was in trouble, and I'd been too blind to see it. The call had come the morning after the funeral. Margaret's lawyer, Patricia Chen, asking if I could come in. Her voice had been careful, measured. There are some things about Margaret's estate we need to discuss, Morrison. Things she wanted me to show you after she was gone. I'd almost said no. The thought of dealing with paperwork, with bank accounts, and insurance policies made me want to crawl back into bed and never get up. But Patricia had added, "Please come alone. Don't bring Claire or Derek." Margaret was very specific about that. That got my attention. Claire had been wonderful through all of this. She'd taken a week off from her nursing job at Mount Sinai to help me with the funeral arrangements. She'd organized the reception, fielded calls from relatives, made sure I ate something every day. Derek had been equally supportive, handling things I couldn't face, like calling the insurance company and sorting through Margaret's clothes. But now Margaret's lawyer was telling me to come alone, to keep this from my daughter. What kind of secret required that? So here I was, sitting in a leather chair that probably cost more than my monthly pension, staring at the person who'd just stood up from the other chair when I walked in. My cousin, Bradley, who'd moved to Toronto from Vancouver 5 years ago after his contracting business went under. Bradley, who Margaret and I had helped get back on his feet, co-signing a loan so he could rent an apartment. Bradley, who'd become a fixture at our Sunday dinners, who'd helped me reshingle the roof last summer, who'd driven Margaret to her medical appointments when I was stuck at work. Bradley, who Claire had started calling Uncle Brad, even though we weren't that close in age. Bradley, who'd held my arm at the funeral, tears streaming down his face, telling me how much Margaret had meant to him. Bradley, who was looking at me now with an expression I'd never seen before, fear mixed with something else. Defiance, maybe, or desperation. "What's going on?" I asked Patricia, not taking my eyes off my cousin. "What's he doing here?" Patricia Chen was a woman in her mid-50s, with steel gray hair and the kind of face that had seen every possible human weakness and stopped being surprised by any of them. She sat down behind her desk and folded her hands. "Morrison, I'm going to show you something now. Before I do, I need you to understand that Margaret came to see me 6 weeks before she died. She was very clear about what she wanted to happen, if anything should happen to her. 6 weeks. Margaret had known something 6 weeks ago. I tried to think back to January. Had there been signs? We'd gone to the Leafs game on January 12th. She'd seemed quiet, distracted. I'd asked if she was feeling okay, and she'd smiled and said she was just tired from work. We'd held hands on the subway ride home. 2 days later, she'd made my favorite dinner, beef stroganoff, for no particular reason. I'd joked that she must want something. She'd laughed and said she just wanted to remind me that she loved me. Oh God. She'd been saying goodbye even then, hadn't she? Patricia opened a folder and slid a document across the desk. It was a printout of a bank statement. My bank statement. Our joint account at TD Canada Trust. I recognized the account number, but I didn't recognize the withdrawals. $12,000. November 15th, $8,000. December 3rd, $15,000. January 9th, $10,000. February 7th. That was 5 days before Margaret died. My hands started shaking. What is this? Those withdrawals were not made by you or Margaret, Patricia said quietly. They were made by someone who had access to your online banking credentials. The room felt like it was tilting. I gripped the edge of the desk. Access. How would anyone have access to our... And then I remembered. Last summer. The roof project. Bradley had been at our house almost every day for 2 weeks. I'd used my laptop to pay him in installments, logging into our banking right there at the kitchen table while he was having lunch. He'd been right behind me, watching over my shoulder. I whispered. He wouldn't. I looked at Bradley. He was staring at the floor. Margaret discovered it in early January. Patricia continued. She'd been going through your statements to prepare your tax documents. She noticed the withdrawals. She checked the IP addresses through the bank's security department. They all came from the same location. She slid another piece of paper across the desk. It was a screenshot. An IP address trace. The location marker dropped right on an apartment building on Dundas Street West. Bradley's apartment building. The anger hit me like a fist to the gut, but so did something else. Confusion. Disbelief. This was Bradley. My cousin, the guy who'd taught me to fish when we were kids at his family's cottage in Muskoka. The guy who'd been best man at his brother's wedding, who'd helped his elderly mother move into a retirement home. How does someone like that become a thief? You son of a... Let her finish, Bradley said quietly. His voice was hollow. You need to hear all of it. Patricia took a breath. Margaret didn't go to the police immediately. She came to me first. She wanted to understand the scope before she acted. We ran a full audit of your accounts. Morrison. Over the past 14 months, $47,000 has been withdrawn from your savings without your knowledge. $47,000. The number was so large it didn't feel real. That was half of what I'd saved over my entire teaching career. Half of what was supposed to carry us through retirement. Half of the money we'd planned to use for travel. For helping Claire and Derek with a house down payment. For the grandchildren we'd hoped would come someday. Where did it go? My voice didn't sound like my own. It was shaking, breaking. Where did all our money go? Bradley. My cousin finally looked up at me. His eyes were red-rimmed, bloodshot. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. Online gambling. Sports betting sites. I thought I could win it back. I thought if I could just hit one good streak, I could replace it all before you ever noticed. The words hung in the air like poison. Gambling. He'd gambled away our retirement. I had a problem. Bradley continued, his voice barely above a whisper. I've had a problem for 3 years. It started small. $20 on a hockey game. 50 on the Raptors. Then it got bigger. I lost my savings. Maxed out my credit cards. Started borrowing from payday loan places. He ran his hands through his hair. When I couldn't pay them back, they threatened me. These weren't legitimate lenders. David, they were dangerous people. I was terrified. And then I was at your house. And I saw you log into your banking. And I memorized the information. I told myself it was temporary. Just until I could win back what I owed. Just until I could get straight. But you didn't get straight, I said. My voice was ice. You kept taking. You kept stealing from us. I know. Tears were running down his face now. I know. Every time I told myself it was the last time. Every time I lost. I'd tell myself the next bet would win it all back. It's a sickness. David. I couldn't stop. A sickness. He wanted me to feel sorry for him. To understand. But all I could think about was Margaret. Margaret finding those statements. Margaret realizing what had happened. Margaret carrying that knowledge alone. The room tilted. I gripped the arms of my chair. Margaret confronted him. Patricia said. On February 10th, she told him she was going to report it to the police unless he got help. She'd already contacted a gambling addiction counselor. She'd arranged for Bradley to enter a treatment program. She was trying to help him. Of course she was. That was Margaret. Always trying to fix things. To help people. To find the good in everyone. She died 2 days later. I whispered. Patricia's face was grave. The stress of discovering the theft, of confronting Bradley, of trying to figure out how to tell you without destroying you. Margaret's doctor confirmed that the emotional strain could have contributed to the cardiac event. She had undiagnosed heart disease. The stress was a trigger. She died trying to save our savings from his greed. She died trying to protect me from the truth. I stood up abruptly. The chair scraped against the floor. Bradley stood up too, backing away. his hands raised like I might hit him. And God help me. I wanted to put my fist through his face. I wanted to make him hurt the way I was hurting. David, I never meant. Get out. The words tore out of me. Get out of this office. David, please. I said, get out. Bradley fled. The door slammed behind him so hard the diplomas on Patricia's wall rattled. I sank back into the chair. My whole body was shaking. I couldn't breathe properly. My chest felt tight, constricted. For a terrifying moment, I wondered if I was having a heart attack too. If this was how Margaret had felt in those final moments. Patricia was saying something, but I couldn't hear her over the roaring in my ears. She came around the desk, pressed a glass of water into my hands. Breathe. Morrison, just breathe. I forced air into my lungs, twice. Slowly, the room came back into focus. I'm sorry, Patricia said gently. I know this is overwhelming. Overwhelming. I laughed, but it came out like a sob. My wife died keeping a secret that was killing her. My cousin stole our life savings, and I was too stupid to see any of it. Overwhelming covers it. Patricia sat on the edge of her desk, her expression kind. You're not stupid, David. Margaret worked very hard to hide this from you. She was protecting you. I didn't need protecting. The anger surged again. We were married for 34 years. We were supposed to be partners. She should have told me. You're right, Patricia said simply. She should have. But people in crisis don't always make rational decisions. They make decisions based on love and fear. Margaret loved you. She feared what this would do to you. I put my head in my hands. The water glass trembled in my grip. Why am I here? I asked finally. Why show me this now? Because Margaret left you something. Patricia opened a drawer and pulled out a sealed envelope. My name was written on it in Margaret's handwriting. The sight of it made my throat close up. She left this with me in case anything happened. She made me promise not to give it to you until after the funeral. She wanted you to have time to grieve first. I stared at the envelope. I wasn't sure I could handle whatever was inside. There's more, Patricia said gently. Before Margaret died, she'd already taken steps. She'd changed all your banking passwords. She'd moved the remaining funds into a new account that only had your name on it. She'd documented everything. She left you a choice. David, what choice? Whether to press charges against Bradley or not. She left detailed instructions for both scenarios. If you want to pursue criminal charges, I have everything ready for the Crown Attorney. If you want to handle this as a family matter, she left terms for restitution. My brilliant, careful wife, even dying, she'd been trying to protect me, trying to give me control over a situation that was spinning out of control. I picked up the envelope. My hands were steadier now. I need to read this alone. Of course, take your time. I'll be right outside. Patricia left, closing the door softly behind her. I sat in that expensive chair in that quiet office, holding the last words my wife would ever say to me. The envelope wasn't sealed with tape or glue. Margaret had used the old-fashioned method, tucked the flap inside, like she wanted to make it easy for me, like she knew my hands might be shaking too much to deal with anything complicated. I opened the envelope. The letter was 3 pages long, handwritten on the lined note paper we kept in the kitchen drawer. I recognized every loop and curve. She'd written this sitting at our kitchen table. I could picture her there, probably late at night while I slept, probably crying, choosing her words. My dearest David, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. And Patricia has told you about Bradley. I'm so sorry, my love. I'm sorry you have to learn about this without me there to hold your hand. I'm sorry I didn't tell you when I first discovered it. I wanted to, but I knew you. I knew if you found out, you'd confront Bradley immediately. You'd be angry, rightfully so, and you'd act on that anger. And Bradley is sick. David, addiction is a sickness. I didn't want you to carry the guilt of destroying him when he needed help. I also knew it would devastate you to know that someone we trusted, someone we helped, could do this to us. You're retiring in 3 months, and I didn't want this shadow over the beginning of our next chapter. I thought I could fix it quietly. I thought I could get Bradley into treatment, set up a payment plan, and tell you about it once it was all resolved. I was wrong. I should have trusted you with the truth from the beginning. That's on me. The stress of keeping this secret ate at me every day, pretending everything was fine while I was dying inside. I couldn't sleep. My chest would get tight. I'd have these moments where I couldn't breathe. I should have seen the warning signs. I should have gone to the doctor. But I was so focused on protecting you that I forgot to protect myself. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, David, but marrying you wasn't one of them. These 34 years have been the greatest gift I could ever imagine. Every morning I woke up next to you was a blessing. Every Saturday morning when you made those terrible pancakes, yes, terrible, I only pretended they were good because I loved watching you try. Every time you'd fall asleep on the couch during the third period and deny it afterward. Every small moment of our ordinary life was extraordinary to me. And that's why this secret hurts so much. Because we promised each other on our wedding day that we'd face everything together. No secrets, no lies, just us, being honest. Even when it was hard, I broke that promise. And I'm sorrier than I can say. Now, you have a choice to make. Bradley stole from us. That's a fact. But he's also family. He's also sick. He needs help, not prison. If you want to press charges, I understand. Patricia has everything ready. Bradley will face justice. And maybe that's what he needs to hit rock bottom and truly recover. But if you can find it in your heart to offer mercy, I've left terms. He must complete the full treatment program. He must attend GA meetings for at least 2 years. He must make monthly payments to reimburse what he can, even if it takes the rest of his life. And he must earn back your trust through actions, not words. I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking I'm too soft, too forgiving, that I should have been angrier. But David, I've seen what anger does. I've seen what happens when families destroy each other over money. I don't want that for us. I don't want that for Claire. I don't want her to lose her Uncle Brad and her mother in the same year. Whatever you decide, know that I love you. Know that these last 34 years with you were the greatest gift of my life. Know that if I could go back, I would still choose you, every single time. You taught generations of students that every problem has a solution if you break it down step by step. This is no different. Take it slow. Don't make any decisions today. Grieve first. Heal first. The rest can wait. All my love. Always. Margaret. There's one more thing. Check the freezer. Behind the frozen peas, I left you a surprise for when you're ready to smile again. I lowered the letter. Tears were streaming down my face. But I was also laughing through them. The frozen peas. That had been our hiding spot for Christmas gifts since the kids were little. Margaret always said no one ever looked behind the frozen vegetables. She was right. I'd checked the freezer a dozen times since she died, looking for something to eat. Something easy to microwave? I'd never thought to look behind the peas. Patricia knocked softly and came back in. Are you all right? I said honestly, but I will be. She sat down across from me, waiting. What do you want to do about Bradley? She asked gently. I thought about my wife, who'd tried so hard to protect everyone, even the person who'd hurt us. I thought about the math teacher in me, who knew that punishment without rehabilitation was just another form of failure. I thought about Claire, who'd already lost so much. Set up the treatment plan, I said finally. I want him to get help, but I also want a legally binding repayment agreement. And if he fails the program, or misses a single payment, we go to the Crown attorney. No second chances. Patricia nodded, making notes. Margaret would be proud of you, I said, folding the letter carefully. Margaret would have been proud of me if I'd paid attention. If I'd noticed she was struggling. If I'd been there. Morrison, you can't blame yourself for not seeing something Margaret worked very hard to hide. She was protecting you because she loved you. Sometimes, love means carrying burdens alone. That's the problem, I said quietly. It shouldn't have been alone. We were a team. That was the whole point. I stood up, tucking the letter into my coat pocket, right over my heart. Thank you, Patricia, for everything, for helping her, for doing this. She was a remarkable woman, I said, my voice breaking. She really was. I drove home in a daze. The February sun was setting, turning the snow pink and orange. Our street looked the same as it always had. Patterson's house, with the blue shutters. Liu walking her terrier. The kids' hockey net still set up in the cul-de-sac, even though it was too cold to play. But everything was different now. The whole world had shifted on its axis. I parked in the driveway and sat there for a long moment, looking at our house. Our home, 30 years in this place. I could see Margaret's garden beds under the snow, dormant but waiting for spring. She'd planted tulips last fall, red and yellow ones. She'd said she'd never see them bloom. Inside, the house was exactly as I'd left it that morning. Claire had cleaned up after the funeral reception, but she'd left everything else alone, knowing I'd need to do it myself when I was ready. Margaret's reading glasses were still on the side table. Her coffee mug was still in the dish rack. Her jacket was still hanging by the door. I went straight to the kitchen, opened the freezer with hands that barely shook, moved the frozen peas aside. There was a small box wrapped in newspaper comics, the way Margaret always wrapped silly gifts. The Sunday funnies from the Toronto Star. I pulled it out, my hands shaking again now, and unwrapped it carefully, saving the paper because it had her fingerprints on it, her tape, her hands folding it. Inside was a model airplane kit, a Cessna 172, the kind I'd learned to fly in when I was 20, back before teaching and marriage and mortgages took over my life. We'd always talked about getting my license renewed when I retired, maybe buying a share in a plane at the Buttonville airport, taking flying trips across Canada. Dreams we'd had, plans we'd made. There was a note tucked inside, written on a piece of torn notepaper in her handwriting. Time to fly. David, don't wait for perfect conditions. Just go. I sat down at the kitchen table, that little airplane kit in my hands, and I cried, really cried. Not the controlled tears from the funeral, not the quiet grief I'd been carrying. This was raw, broken, sobbing that came from somewhere deep inside me. I cried for my wife, who'd tried so hard to do the right thing, for the money we'd lost, for the trust that had been broken, for the future we'd never have, for every Saturday morning pancake we'd never share again, but also for the life we'd had, for 34 years of love and laughter and ordinary magic, for a woman who'd faced her own mortality and still thought to leave me a gift that said, keep living. I don't know how long I sat there. The sun went down, the kitchen went dark, but I couldn't move, couldn't turn on the lights, just sat there in the darkness, holding that model airplane, feeling the weight of everything I'd lost and everything I still had. 3 months later, I was standing in Patricia's office again. It was May now. The tulips in Margaret's garden had bloomed exactly as she'd promised, bright red and yellow against the dark earth. Bradley was there too. He looked different, thinner, clearer-eyed. The puffiness was gone from his face. He'd completed the 60-day inpatient program at Homewood Health Center and was 2 months into his GA meetings. I want to say something, Bradley said. His voice was steady now, not hollow like before. I know, sorry doesn't cover it. I know I can't undo what I did. But I'm going to spend the rest of my life making this right. Not just the money, the trust, everything. I looked at my cousin. I still felt angry when I saw him. Probably always would, at least a little. But I also saw someone who was fighting, someone who was sick and trying to get well. Margaret believed in second chances. I said, so I'm going to try. But Bradley, if you slip even once, I know, he said quickly. I know. You'll never have to worry about that. I swear on my mother's grave. Patricia slid the repayment agreement across her desk. Bradley had gotten a job doing night maintenance at Credit Valley Hospital. Every month, $400 would come out of his paycheck, automatically, transferred directly into my account. At that rate, it would take him nearly 10 years to repay the full amount. He'd signed the agreement without hesitation, without asking for better terms or a lower payment. We all signed. It was done. Outside the office, Bradley stopped me. How are you doing? Really? I thought about that. About the empty house I went home to every night. About the flying lessons I'd started in April. Pushing myself to do the thing Margaret had wanted me to do. About the grief that still hit me at random moments seeing her coffee mug, hearing a song she loved, catching a scent that reminded me of her perfume. I'm learning to live with it, I said. Some days are better than others. Bradley nodded. She loved you so much. David. Everything she did, even hiding this from you. It was because she loved you. I know, I said. That's what makes it so hard. I drove home as the spring sun set over Mississauga. The tulips were up in Margaret's garden, bright red and yellow against the dark earth. She'd been right. They were beautiful. I parked in the driveway and sat there for a moment, like I did most days, gathering the strength to walk into that empty house. But today felt different, lighter, somehow. Inside, I made myself dinner, grilled cheese and tomato soup, Margaret's comfort food. Sat at the kitchen table where we'd shared 10,000 meals. Looked at the model Cessna I'd built and mounted on the wall, right where Margaret's reading chair used to be. My phone buzzed. A text from Claire. Derek and I want to take you to dinner tomorrow. The new Italian place on Lake Shore. Our treat. Please. I smiled. Claire had been checking on me constantly. Sometimes too much, but always out of love. I typed back, "I'd like that. Thank you, sweetheart." Another text came through. This one from Patricia Chen. "Bradley made his first payment today. Thought you'd want to know. $400. 46,600 to go. But it was a start." I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the neighborhood kids were playing street hockey, just like they did every spring evening. Patterson across the street was washing his car. Lou was walking her terrier. The world turning, life going on, the way it does. I thought about Margaret's letter, still tucked in my wallet, worn soft from being read and reread. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Just go. She was right. She was always right. I pulled out my laptop and opened my email. Found the one from the Brampton Flying Club, the one about their summer trip to the Maritimes. Group of pilots flying the coastline from Halifax to St. John's. I'd deleted it 3 times, thinking I couldn't go alone. But I wasn't alone. Margaret was in every decision I made, every risk I took, every moment I chose to keep living instead of just existing. I hit reply and typed, "Count me in. 1 seat. Please." Tomorrow I'd grieve. Tomorrow I'd probably cry again. Tomorrow I'd wake up and remember all over again that she was gone. But tonight, I was going to honor her. Tonight, I was going to fly. I tilted my laptop screen so the evening light didn't glare. Opened the photo folder I hadn't been able to look at since she died. There was Margaret in our kitchen, laughing at something I'd said, flour on her nose from baking, her eyes bright with life and love. "I'm trying," I whispered to her picture. "I'm trying to do what you asked." And in the quiet of our kitchen, with the tulips blooming outside and the model plane on the wall and the kids playing in the street, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not the absence of pain, not forgetting, but the knowledge that love doesn't end just because someone's gone, that the life we built still mattered, that her final gift to me wasn't just a model airplane. It was permission to keep going. I closed the laptop and stood up. Tomorrow I'd call Claire back and confirm that dinner. Tomorrow I'd check my account and see Bradley's first payment. Tomorrow I'd take another flying lesson, getting closer to that trip across the Maritimes. Tomorrow I'd keep building a life worthy of the woman who'd loved me enough to carry her burdens alone so I wouldn't have to. But tonight, I'd just sit here in our kitchen, in the home we'd built together, and remember that sometimes the people who hurt us are broken themselves. Remember that mercy and justice can exist in the same space. Remember that love is both the weight we carry and the wings that help us fly. Margaret had known that, had lived it, had died trying to protect it. Now it was my turn to honor it. I picked up the model Cessna from the wall, held it carefully in my hands. Such a small thing, such a big message. "Time to fly," she'd said. So I would. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.